You ready, Nick? Let's get him.
Last summer, I believe you received a phone call from Dave Mays and Suge Knight. Could you tell me exactly what happened and where it went wrong at? It was made public that Dave decided not to release whatever happened. The floor is yours.
So we did an interview. Dave Mays was like, "Hey, I have this podcast launching with Suge Knight," and so we wanted to have him on the show. And so Maino guest hosts my show all the time, and things went a little left. I'm trying to remember the full conversation, but Dave was on Zoom, Suge was on the phone, and I think it was something about being in protective custody. And I'm gonna be honest, like, Maino was locked up for 10 years, so he know about everything, like what goes on in jail. I'm not that well versed in it.
Right.
And so it was something about like being in protective custody, and then Suge was saying he wasn't, but then he said something about Maino, and Maino was not in protective custody. And then it turned into a conversation about Biggie. We're from Brooklyn, and Maino has some things to say about that. And then Suge got mad and hung up. And then Dave Mays was like, the next day, after everything was edited, he was asking us not to air it. And so it was just a call that, my producer then had to go to the higher ups. And, it's way up with Angela Yee. It's not supposed to be a show that is controversial like that. And some things kind of aren't worth, to me, it wasn't my call. It wasn't my decision, but they made it seem like Suge only wanted to be like positive. And I've seen him saying a lot of crazy things. So I don't know that that's the reason of what it is. Maybe he just didn't like the way it made him appear. And so that we never ended up playing that.
Okay. Tell me about your podcast, Lip Service.
Well, Lip Service, we've been doing Lip Service for 10 years as a podcast. Before that, it was on Sirius.
Right.
And so I remember bringing it back because, I was on the Breakfast Club. I wanted something, like I said, I've always wanted to go back to doing my own show. Sometimes being around guys all the time, you want to have that woman energy and have those types of conversations. And when I initially started Lip Service, when I was at Sirius, it was really to educate guys on what women talk about when they're not around.
Right.
And to help them understand us better, but also a space for us to be able to talk about whatever we wanted and know that we're not alone in anything. Because I think a lot of times as women, Black women, Latina women, women of color, we get judged differently than white women and definitely differently than men.
Right.
And so I wanted us to be able to have a space where we could have conversations openly, honestly, dialogue where we don't feel like we're under attack, where we can be honest. And I know that with my girls, we have all kinds of conversations. So I wanted to be able to bring that to the radio. It's funny because when I first started it, it was a segment on my show with Cypher, and the women were all anonymous and had code names because it was like women who were secretaries, one woman was a lawyer. And then it turned into more than that because the segment got so popular, they offered me my own show, like a weekly show. So I started doing this weekly show, Lip Service. And then when I left Sirius to come to iHeart, I had the option to continue it, but Sirius, I think they were kind of mad that I left. So it just didn't happen because I had carved it out of my agreement just in case. And so when podcasting became a thing, initially I did an interview with August Alsina and I did one with Mila J. And it was kind of just 2 one-offs and they did pretty good. So we were like, let's bring it back. And my boy Scotty owns the studio I work out of, Engine Room Audio. And he was like, let's bring the podcast back. You could do it here. We'll offer whatever support that we can. And to this day, they still do.
From what I'm seeing on the internet, you had a recent episode and you had Bagfuel and you had Math Hoffa in the same spot at the same time. I have to commend you. You remained cool as the other side of the pillow the whole time. But tell me exactly what it was that people felt they saw, because people made videos about that encounter. So if you please.
Well, me knowing Hyneken, Esso, and knowing Math Hoffa, first of all, I know that they've run into each other on other occasions and spoken and even had plans to sit down. So I know it's not like a violent, we're going to beat each other up situation. Like they can talk. It's a business disagreement. And so it was not planned. So I want to say that Kim Osario was doing the second episode. She was guest hosting, and you could see her on the episode that came on after that. I'm wearing the same clothes. So I purposely didn't put her on the Bagfuel episode because our other guest host, Jordan, was out. And so Kim sometimes will come in too and guest host. And so I guess Math told her, oh, I want to bring Angela a gift. So we were literally about to start the podcast. And she sends a text like, Math wants to bring you a birthday present. And so me sitting there, I'm like, okay, they may not even see each other because they're coming on the next episode. And I also know they're not going to fight, And so towards the end of the episode, Math is in the control room and we could see him. I didn't see him at first. It was actually Hyneken and Esso. They was like, oh, there's Math. And so they were like, yeah, bring him in. So he comes in the studio. He gives me the bottle of 1942. And then they're like, everybody's like, yeah, let's sit down. Let's talk. And I knew, to me, I know they weren't going to be disrespectful and do nothing crazy because they've seen each other. So it's not like it's on site the business side of it was messed up. And I know that eventually they were going to have a conversation, and it probably was a question of whose platform would it be on. I think that they had a lot of success together, but sometimes people can't agree on things when it comes to business moves. And they've both been doing their thing. So it's not like, I think it's worse when one entity moves on and the other one isn't doing nothing.
Right.
This is a different situation. Everybody's doing their thing. So we can either move forward, do some things together, or we can move forward separately. But I think the best case scenario is to not have, that bad blood where we're continually talking about each other. People think they can't be in the same room. That's not true. And so it turned into a bit of a yelling match. But that's a New York thing too. I think people have to understand, talking aggressively and doing all of that, that don't mean nobody's about to fight and throw down. These are men that have had these, they saw each other, say less. The plan was, to get together, go to dinner, talk. It didn't happen. And it wasn't like how people were making it seem like it was some dangerous situation. It wasn't a setup at all. It was just, Kim, I guess Math knew she was coming there and that they were there. And that was it. If I wanted to set somebody up, I would have told Kim, come on the Bagfuel episode. But I also let her know, I said, look, Bagfuel's doing it first. I didn't put you on that episode because I know she does Math Hoffa's show. So I respectfully didn't do that. And Kim and I go way back. I've known her, we both came up in this game together. So it's not like I don't talk to her all the time anyway about things. So it definitely wasn't a setup. And I think that it was a good conversation to have because for a lot of people, it was a lot of them speaking on it, him speaking on it. They got to talk to each other. And there was a lot of people that followed up with me afterward that were mentioned in those conversations.
Right.
That were like, that's not what happened. I know, Byron Kirkland hit me like, hey, y'all got me trending
right,
because of that conversation. And, I think and it felt like, and I said this during the episode, it feels like it was just a misunderstanding. Like it was a contract. One person said that they didn't know about it, but it came from a legitimate person. And so sometimes it's just like people don't communicate the way that they should. That's all.
right. How well did the episode do?
You know what? I got to look. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I think, people are tuned in for it. And I do think that people would like to see them together again. Now, whether or not that can happen, I can't say, but I could see them maybe sitting down and kind of hashing through things,
Need an online push. Gully TV Media, East Coast, West Coast, down south, uptown, downtown, Switzerland, the hottest in the business. Underground MCs. Need a push? Gully TV. Published authors. You need a push? Gully TV. Your daily online source of hip-hop, sports, and fashion.
The email is below. GullyTVBoss@gmail. Hit me up, I'll be there.
Yo, you know the vibes. Uncle Ralph McDaniels, Video Music Box, Lord Nez in the building.
Yeah, Queens get the money, baby. Shout out to Gully TV, man.
Gully TV.
How you say get your dribble right?
Get your dribble right.
Get your dribble right?
Right?
Ah!
Yeah.